The stock market is essentially in free fall right now, with almost everyone expecting things to get worse before they get better. But as I told you in my previous video, 2025 is really setting up to be one of the best buying opportunities that we've seen, which in that last video, I also showed you all of the stocks that I'll be looking to buy throughout this year and throughout all the volatility. But in today's video, I'm going to show you why it'll be a buying opportunity. And this isn't financial advice. As always, do your own research, make your own decisions. I'm only sharing with you my own opinion and what I'll be doing myself throughout the year as stocks fall. But here's going to be 5 reasons why I think 2025 will be a massive buying opportunity that'll make a lot of investors rich out there. Now, reasons 1 and 2 will be directly stock market related, and then 3, 4, and 5 will be more specific to the tariff situation and how I think that gets resolved as a net positive eventually. Now, let's jump into it. Okay, so reason number 1 has a lot to do with the old Buffett adage, be greedy when others are fearful. Because right now, stock prices are getting dirt cheap, and by all likelihood, will continue to get even cheaper from here, with everyone panicking and the market going through extreme fear as everyone sells out of their stocks. In fact, as soon as sweeping tariffs were announced, the market not only suffered its worst one-day drop since the 2020 pandemic crash, and we all know how bad that was, but get this, guys. As a point drop, the Dow Jones was among the top 5 worst drops in history, with the NASDAQ breaking a historical record with the worst one-day drop ever in its entire history. And that's pretty freaking crazy. And again, most analysts, most economists, and most experts are all saying that this will continue to get worse because of these devastating tariffs, which, by the way, part of that will even be somewhat self-fulfilling because of all of these really experts and the media, pumping all of this fear into consumers and investors' minds, so much so that it'll cause them to panic even further and likely spend a lot less on goods, which, keep in mind, most of our economy is consumer driven. So if they spend less, it's going to cause the economy to crash. It's going to hurt companies, and that'll trickle down into stocks, and stock prices will fall too. But also, it'll cause investors to move away from what they perceive at the moment to be riskier assets like stocks into safer alternatives like maybe government bonds, resulting in stocks crashing even further. And that's exactly what's happening already with CNN's fear and greed meter, which I use all the time, by the way, and I've showed you in many different videos throughout the years that whenever it jumps to either extreme, it's something to, absolutely be aware and cautious of. Well, I think probably the only other time that I've seen it this far to the left in the extreme fear category was probably during the pandemic crash of 2020. And that's going to lead me to reason number 2, that the market always rebounds long term. Now, could this be that one time in absolute history where the US market doesn't recover? Sure, anything is possible, I guess, but all the evidence that we have points to an eventual recovery where whoever bought the dip ends up making a ton of money. And those that really sat on the sidelines constantly calling buyers idiots because they think that the market will only ever get worse, well, those people always miss these opportunities, and they stick to the worst strategy possible of buying high and selling low. When things are great, they go in and they buy stocks like crazy because, they don't want to miss out on all the hype and all the FOMO. But when prices are actually coming down, what would be considered more attractive, and the value and even the dividends too that we get in return are actually rising, well, those same people tend to be too afraid to ever take advantage of those opportunities, and will even oftentimes sell their stocks the lower that prices go, all in panic. But history tells us that you should be doing the exact opposite, because giant recoveries always take place following the drop. And it doesn't even take as long as you might think. In fact, when we look at the 10 largest single day drops in over 5 decades, these were the absolute worst moments of our entire lives in kind of recent history, somewhat recent history. I mean, you're talking about peak fear and panic here. Some people even thinking that the world is ending, like was kind of the case during the pandemic. But guess what? 9 out of those 10 times, The market soared within the first year. In just 1 year, the market already had huge rebounds, anywhere from around 20 to 70% gains. Again, in just less than 1 year's worth of time, it's really not that long. In other words, if a person is seeing stocks crashing now and is thinking, I better wait to buy anything because the market will only get obliterated for years, well, chances are extremely high that they're wrong and will probably come out of this with deep regrets when the market eventually returns to record highs once again, but they didn't even bother to buy a single stock. And by the way, as a stock market YouTuber myself for many years, I've always said that market dips, corrections, and crashes were the best buying opportunities. And every single time, I got tons of comments and messages calling me an idiot and saying that things will only get worse. Yet, here we are just this very year. We were already breaking new record highs, before all of this more recent falling started. But, that's okay. I'll probably get those same comments once again here, and eventually the market will recover back up to record highs, and all those same people will continue being angry at me because they stayed on the sidelines this entire time and never took advantage of the great prices for the long term. So those are the first two reasons, having to do with great stock prices as the market falls that will very likely recover back up, and probably a lot sooner than people realize. However, for the market to recover, of course, there will need to be at least some type of resolution taking place. And so for reasons 3, 4, and 5, I'm just going to quickly run you through my 3 most likely scenarios that could cause that to happen. Now, first up, the most effective, or maybe the most obvious, would be that the tariffs actually work, getting other countries to lower tariffs and take in more US goods, while America works on building back their own manufacturing base that used to thrive, but has since deteriorated because of cheap labor overseas, what some might even consider to be borderline slave labor. But just on trade alone, last year, for example, America not only had one of the lowest average MFN tariff rates in the world of only around 3%, while other nations were much higher, sometimes double or even triple that, but more importantly, America's trade deficit hit a record $1.2 trillion. Just China, Mexico, and Vietnam alone export over $500 billion more to America every single year. Even the European Union does hundreds of billions more, despite everything that America really does to help European nations. But tell me, guys, when was the last time that you've heard of a European country doing anything to help America? If anything, I've only really read of, European nations charging gigantic fines to really some of the biggest fines that we've ever seen in history to American companies for being so large and operating in their countries. But America never really does anything back to them. And not that they should, by the way. I don't have any kind of political opinion on any of this. I'm just saying that there is an obvious deficit taking place that actually both Republicans and Democrats have always agreed is a problem, that, America's manufacturing base has deteriorated and we don't really do enough for our own working class, but they just disagree on how to actually solve that. In this particular case, Trump wants to use tariffs, which Democrats obviously disagree with and think that it will only make things worse, which is a fair argument. Again, I'm not here to take sides. All I'm arguing is that the stock market will still be a long-term buy regardless. And reason number 4 has to do with that, because I predict that we're going to see new trade deals being signed in the coming weeks and months that will surprise the market. In fact, we already know of more than 50 countries reaching out to the White House trying to get resolutions done. Now, unfortunately, China has decided to retaliate, to which Trump is now threatening an additional 50% tariffs if they don't back down. But in that social media post, he also noted that negotiations with other countries, including requested meetings, will start taking place immediately, which could be a good sign. And just to give you some examples here, Israel met with Trump today and already agreed to eliminate their deficit and trade barriers with America. We have Japan also making efforts to negotiate with the prime minister, saying that he'll even fly out to the US to make a deal similar to what Israel just did. The UK says that they hope to secure a deal in the coming weeks, with already having some success. Vietnam offered to completely eliminate all tariffs in a new deal with America, with Trump saying that they already had a very productive call. India said they're not considering any retaliation and are already willing to cut tariffs on more than half of all US imports, totaling more than $20 billion as part of an initial deal. Mexico's president said that they'll be traveling to Washington in early April to hold tariff negotiations. Canada and the US agreed to negotiate a new economic deal after their elections take place on April 28th. And there are numerous other announcements just like that, that to be honest, not a lot of people are even covering or talking about, including Cambodia, Thailand, South Korea, Australia, Argentina, Switzerland, Malaysia, the EU, and more. We also had Trump's Commerce Secretary, Howard Lutnick, in a recent interview talking about how the fact that, really we're seeing so many countries already willing to make deals that it's just more evidence that they know that they've been ripping America off. And so they're going to be coming to the table willing to make concessions. And while he suggested that there will not be any pauses on these new tariffs, he did at least say that they are definitely going to stay in place for days and weeks, which I thought was a little interesting because he didn't say years or even months. I'm not saying that it can't last that long, but it does kind of suggest that they could be looking to have them go away much sooner than everyone fears. Again, maybe weeks as opposed to months. I think it's going to be months, but we'll see what happens. Either way, this leaves me with the fifth and final reason, and that's that even in the worst scenario where these tariffs are unsuccessful in accomplishing anything other than just hurting America, well, they can always be simply taken off. As fast as they were put on, America can announce that they're coming off. And then we're really just left, going right back to where we started, which was a situation where the stock market was already trading at record highs to begin with. In other words, regardless of what takes place in the coming weeks and months, by all likelihood, the stock market will still recover long term. And this entire period of crashing stocks will have ultimately been a buying opportunity all along, in my opinion. Again, not financial advice. Do whatever you think is best with your own money. But as for me, as a long-term minded investor, these opportunities are some of the rarest that I think we're going to see throughout this year, especially. And I want to make sure that I can take advantage of that volatility, and falling prices all the way down. But I'd love to hear your thoughts down below and what you're doing yourself, because I welcome all thoughts and opinions on this channel. And I just want to say too, I love you guys no matter what, even if it's just a handful of my viewers that may hate or disagree some of the things I say for whatever reason. I'm not going to let that faze me, because I know that most of you love me. And like I said, I love you guys too. And I hope you're all doing well. And I want you to know that I'm here with you throughout this entire ride. I'm going to be updating you all along the way on everything that's going on, because we're in this together, and I appreciate your guys' support, and I will be sure to do my best to keep you guys informed as well. All right. Thank you again for your support. I'll catch you in the next video. Take care, my friends. Bye-bye.